Tonight's WineCast is brought to you by Cafe at the Plaza, Milwaukee's east side destination for breakfast, brunch, and lunch. Part of the newly renovated Plaza Hotel located at Cass and State. And the wine today would go great with the smoked trout scrambler. So, did I get that right, Karen? All right, so happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School, where it is wine your way. And I have my sister, Karen Bell, in the room as well. She's the creator of the smoked trout scrambler at the Cafe at the Plaza. And we're going to be partying tonight. We're going to be getting New Year's Eve started early, like 2 or 3 days early. And we're hopefully you guys are going to start partying with us. We actually have empty glasses still. We're going to, I know, she's going to quit. She's going to walk out on me. That's part of the deal, is that I give her lots of wine on Wednesday nights. So we're going to get them open, but we're going to open them for you live. So hopefully
this could be a disaster.
Right. Well, at least we haven't been drinking before that. Yeah. So it should go smoothly. It should, although if I'm on Karen's bad side, she might put the cork towards my head, and then it won't be fun. So go ahead and say hello to Karen. If you don't know how to, or you don't know how to be a part of the conversation, this is how you do it. If you're watching live, off to the right, you'll see our chat stream. And you can just go ahead and type anything in under audience. And it'll take you to this screen. And if you've got a login, you go ahead and log in. If not, sign up. And it'll take you to this screen, and you fill in the 5 fields, and boom, you are a part of the conversation. So today is WineCast number 22. I can't believe we've made it to WineCast number 22. And this is for our wine newbies. These are tastings for people who are just new to wine or really want to build a solid foundation in wine. So we're going to be drinking a wine actually I have never tried. This is the first wine that I have done this, where I'm trying it for the first time on our show here. And so I no promises here, but it was recommended by a very good friend who has always given me good advice on wine. So we're going to see how it goes today. But what it is, it's Francois Montan, my fabulous French, and it's a Blanc de Blanc. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. And it's from France, specifically from the Côte de Jura. And I know that probably won't mean a lot to anyone, but I'll get to that a little later as well. So let's see, Karen. We're gonna
open the wine.
I know. Well, hold on. She's starting to shake a little over there. But you know, sparkling wine is a lot of fun, and I think people think of different things when they think of sparkling wine. What do you think of? First word that comes to mind.
Lovely, bubbly deliciousness.
Lovely, bubbly deliciousness. What do you guys think about? I would love to know what you guys, when I say champagne or sparkling wine, what comes to mind. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, the word celebration comes to mind. Everyone thinks about celebration. And it's not too far off, because if we look at the history of champagne, or specific, or sparkling wine, which is, champagne is sparkling wine, it comes from a region in France called Champagne. And it was in the capital of this region where kings were crowned since 500 AD. So for about 500 years or so, kings were crowned in this city in the capital of Champagne. So what were they drinking? Champagne. So you can see how there's this association between sparkling wine and champagne. Sparkling wine and champagne, I would say. Sparkling wine and celebration. So that's what I think a lot of people think about. I also just think it's pretty. I mean, the bubbles are fantastic, and they're just fun to look at. I'm kind of bored, right? So Christine is saying savoring. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm not savoring tonight. Savoring, for those of you who don't know, is when you open the bottle with a saber or a sword, and it's actually quite simple. I can say that because I've never done it, but it's actually quite simple, but I don't know. Maybe next year, guys. Not this year. I'm not doing it.
There's not enough space in this studio to do that.
What are you talking about? This is a huge studio. We've got the best technology. You should see the studio. Okay. So any other comments? I think that was the only one we had on what people are saying. So what we're going to be doing is opening 2 bottles. Karen, I'm going to enlist your help here.
All right.
So you can open the first wine that we're going to try tonight. Now it's wet here, so I've given you a towel. Let's see here. So we're going to be opening, and I think when when it comes time to open the bottle, some people say, well, you know, give it to me. I want to make lots of noise and get everyone wet. And then other people shy away because it can be a little intimidating at times. So we're just going to go over some of the basics. Now, the first basic is to be careful. This bottle of wine has enough, the same amount of pressure as a tire on a double-decker bus. So it is a lot of pressure. And what you want to make sure is that you keep the bubbles in the bottle. That's the big thing. Just keep the bubbles in the bottle. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. But the first thing you want to do is make sure it's really cold. Yours should be very cold. It was in the ice. And the reason why you do that is because if the champagne or sparkling wine is cold, it's going to keep the bubbles in the bottle. You know when you go to a restaurant or, you know, they win the Super Bowl and there's champagne kind of bubbling over, it's probably because the champagne is not cold. Either that or they're you know, shaking it around a lot. But a lot of times it's because it's not cold. So when you're at the restaurant and they open a bottle in front of you and it starts to bubble over, don't think it's pretty. Think, put that in ice for me and get it to the right temperature. And also, they're wasting your wine. It's bubbling over. I don't care how pretty it is. Like, you could drink that stuff. So you definitely want to make sure it's cold. Now, in a pinch, you can put it in ice for, say, 30 minutes. In half and half water and ice. Not just ice, people. That's not going to do it. You need to put water in it as well. So half and half water and ice. And then, or you put it in a fridge for, say, 3 hours or so. Okay, so another thing that you might need is a towel. Now, the towel is good, especially if it's wet, but also, like I said, there's a lot of pressure in these bottles, and so sometimes if you can do it and still maintain a good grip, it's good to have it because these bottles can break. A friend of mine in New York, she was a sommelier, she was at the table side and was opening, and it actually burst in her hands as she was opening it. It cracked. And she had stitches. Why is that funny?
You're just going to scare everyone from wanting to open the bottle.
I'm scaring you into using a towel because it's not fun, obviously. She had stitches, and this is a pretty important vein, so I've heard. Okay, so let's see here. So now after that, after you've got your towel and your bottle, now we're going to open it. Karen's trying to, you know, shake a little over there. Now, they usually have these pull tabs here, which this is totally cool to use. Now, if you were going to be a sommelier and be tableside and you wanted to go and get your certified sommelier certification, then they would ask you to cut it. And you'd fail your exam, actually, if you did what we're doing right now. So you can just pull off the tab and pull off the foil there. But again, if you're going to be a sommelier, cut it. We're just interested in getting the bottle open. Now, the next thing is you've got a cage and then a cork. Now, this cage, it's interesting. The same company makes all the cages, the story goes, and so they're all 6 half turns. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all going to be that. It's nice trivia for New Year's Eve. Now, what you can do is you can take the cage off if you want. You just be careful. If you're taking the cage off, just make sure it's not facing towards anyone's face or anything important. I often keep the cage on, but you can take it off. And then this is where you could maybe get a towel over the bottle here, so that if it were to burst, you've got your hand kind of covered there. Now, this is the trick here. You want your strong hand to hold onto the cork, and the not so strong hand, which is, just as strong, but not so strong, in the other hand. And now this is the trick here. You twist with the bottom. Most people want to twist from the top. You twist from the bottom. Make sure you've got your thumb over that cork, though. See it? Because if not, that could fly into Karen's face. Okay. You better behave tonight. Okay. So you twist from the bottom. The reason why you're doing that is because then you have more control. Okay. Now you gotta see. Now I've got the control, and it started to slip. It'll start to slip a little, and you want to keep your hand like I've got it here. The reason is now that it's starting to slip out, I'm going to keep twisting and lever. Now I have my hand as a leverage. It's actually going up and down, and I'm pushing back on the cork. I actually push back, and the reason is because I want it to hiss. I don't want it to pop. And the reason for that, I'm pushing back on it right now, and the reason why I want it to hiss like that, nice hiss sound, is because otherwise I'm losing all of the bubbles. If that big pop, you just lost everything you just paid for. So we're waiting for the hiss, Karen.
No hiss.
No hiss, perfect, okay. So you can see that is a good way to open a bottle this New Year's Eve. If you want to pop, then pop it open. But if you just paid, you know, $30, $40 for your champagne and you want to preserve what you just paid for it, that is the correct way to open it. But if it's, you know, $10 and you just want to get the party rolling, pop it for all I care, okay? All right, so that is, let's pour them now though, right? Let's finally, okay.
Which one?
We'll do both. We'll get them both out tonight because I'm thirsty. Okay, we're going to put this one back in ice though because we're going to have this one in about a half hour. And let's talk a little bit about why now we use these pretty things called champagne flutes. Now this is the wine for the next WineCAST, so you see a little color on it. This is the one that we're using for this WineCAST here. So you can see these are flutes. Why do we use flutes? Well, a lot of reasons actually. Primarily to improve your experiences. And what I mean by that? Well, it's got a narrow shape. If you look at other glass shapes, right? This is, you know, a white wine glass. This is, I don't know what, this is my grandma's. I'm not kidding, this is Grandma Belle's. Then we've got this. You can see it's narrow. What this is doing is a couple things. One, it's really pretty. And I'm not kidding. That is one of the reasons why we have a very narrow glass. It allows there to be more bubbles, more beads, and for them to just look better in the glass. You get more of a steady stream, more streams of them. So that's one reason, is the appearance. The second reason is because we serve our sparkling wines very well chilled. And this type of glass is going to maintain that chill. It's really going to keep it cold. Whereas this is a little wider, and it's going to allow the temperature to go down, or rather go up a lot quicker. And the wider you get, the quicker it's going to start to get warm, okay? And then also, because it's so cold, it's sometimes difficult to smell a lot on it. The colder a liquid, the less it's going to give on the nose. And so this really helps to make it more narrow and more defined of an aroma if there is much, okay? Now, like I said, there were other glasses, you know, there was one glass that was very popular, I think back in the, you know, early 20th century, it was called the saucer, and it was, you know, half the size of this, and it was really wide, and that one, you know, people often thought that was a good glass. That's actually the worst type of glass you can have for sparkling wine. It's wide and it's open, and it releases all the carbonation really quickly. Okay, so before we actually start tasting, Karen's already skipping ahead over there because the camera's not on her, but we're going to do Wine IQ number 1. So this is wine interactive question. It's meant to get you guys involved with what we're doing. And the ideal service temp for sparkling wine of 45 degrees Fahrenheit can be achieved by placing it A, in the fridge for 3 hours, B, in an ice bucket for 30 minutes, C, outside in Wisconsin on December 31st for 2 hours, or D, all of the above. So now while you're doing that and letting us know what you think, let's talk about how the bubbles get into your sparkling wine. We have to go back to the fermentation equation. Basically, we have sugar in the grapes that are eaten by yeast, and the byproduct is alcohol. That's how we get alcohol. But one of the other major byproducts is carbon dioxide. Now, in most places, the carbon dioxide will just blow off. It'll be an open vessel, an open container, and you won't have the carbon dioxide staying in the wine. But if you do fermentation in a closed vessel where the CO2 has nowhere to go, the bubbles will go back into your liquid, or your wine in this case. So that's how we get sparkling wine. We don't add it through carbonation or anything along those lines. It's a natural process, and it takes a long time, and it can be expensive, which is why sometimes sparkling wines can be expensive, depending on how it's done. And we're going to talk about that in the next WineCAST, so stick around for that one. Now, let's go ahead and see if anyone's mentioned what they think in terms of the ideal service temp. What do we have, Karen?
Just 1D.
Okay, our mom. All right, high five, Mom. Glad you're studying. Okay, so Brian came in with D as well. So what we've got is, you're right, D, all of the above. Now, I should say at this point that, you know, if you're gonna put it in the fridge for 3 hours, then make sure you don't keep it in more than 6 to 8 hours. The reason is that if it's in the fridge a lot longer than that, the cork will start to shrink and you will lose the carbonation in your sparkling wine. Now that said, I kept these wines in for 24 hours. So I don't always follow the advice I give. That's the best advice. I would say try to keep them out of the fridge for more than, 24 hours, 48 hours. You're really starting to starting to risk damaging your wine significantly. So 6 to 8 hours, take it out. But if it's 24 hours, we're not going to get upset. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to mention is taking a look at this and seeing what the bubbles look like. And I know you think, well, what do you mean? They're bubbles. But there's a lot of things the bubbles can tell us. First of all, if they're small and there's a lot of them, that usually means that it's higher quality. So, it's hard to see sometimes because it's frosting up, but take a look at the wine and you guys tell me if you see lots of bubbles, and if you think they're small and if you think they're a steady stream. Those are all signs of a high quality sparkling wine. Now the other thing here is if you don't have bubbles, there may be a couple reasons for that. One, it was stored in your fridge too long, okay? Like I just said, you're gonna lose the carbonation if you store it in your fridge too long. The second is that perhaps the wine is old. Now, if we look at the label on this one here, you'll see there's no vintage, meaning there's no year. So it's difficult to know when this was released. But I'm making this number up, but 90 or 99% of the sparkling wines released are meant to be drunk within the year. Maybe within the 2 years, but within the year. So in that case, sometimes you don't know that it was released 4 years ago and it's just been sitting on a shelf. So perhaps you got unlucky and got a wine that was too old. The other reason, though, you might not have bubbles in your wine is that if you have any soap residue on your glass, you're going to lose the bubbles in your sparkling wine. Okay, so let's actually, we checked out the appearance here. What do you think about the bubbles, Karen?
I think they're fairly steady, and there's seem to be quite a bit of them.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of bubbles. I have different sized bubbles on mine. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that, is saying, okay, it's probably not as high quality as the best sparkling wines in the world, but it's not saying much more than that. It's just that they're different sizes. Now let's actually go to the nose and take a sniff. So go ahead, and this is our wine IQ number 2. Take a sniff, and what you're going to find is that it's difficult to smell the wine, and it's because it's so cold. It's very difficult to get a lot of aromas on this. Also, the shape of the glass makes it difficult to get your nose in there, and you can't swirl it. You're not really supposed to swirl your sparkling wine, but even if you wanted to, you couldn't. So it's difficult to get a nose, but what we want to think about here are things like fruit, earth, and spice. And what we're going to tend to find is that we'll find more earth on our old world wines and fruit on our new world wines. And that holds true for not only still wines, but also for our sparkling wines. So, Karen, what did you get on the nose?
I got just a touch of, like I said, I think it's kind of difficult to pick out things, but maybe a touch of citrus, a touch of yeast, but I don't know if that's just because I know it's champagne, I'm expecting that. Then I got kind of a weird, I don't know if I want to say like, maybe a little bit of nail polish or a different scent that I can't really place.
Okay, sure. Yeah, those were all great. And you know what? Karen mentioned something interesting. She said champagne. She called this champagne. And that's okay. That's something that I do often. We tend to default to champagne if it has bubbles. Now, I will say that legally, you can't call a sparkling wine a champagne unless it comes from a very defined, relatively small region in France, and that's mandated by law. There was laws in as early as 1891 that protected the word champagne in the EU. It wasn't until 2006 that the U.S. Protected it here as well. But what you do find is that you cannot put champagne on a bottle unless it comes from Champagne, and we're going to explore that more in the next WineCast as well. But then, also what you said was spot on. Okay, so I get a lot of lemon, citrus notes, a little yeasty, and a little bit of like an earthy, like a mineral-y note to it. But it's a very light nose, and it's because it's very cold. But also, this is an old world sparkling wine, and so we're getting a lot of that citrus, a lot of those citrus notes as well. So let's go ahead and take a sip. Just like finally. Yeah. Now this is the first time I've had this wine. So I'm taking it all in as we're drinking it. And what I want you guys to think about are the bubbles. Things to think about with sparkling wines to understand quality would be, are the bubbles aggressive or are they a little smoother, right? You'd want to think about the balance between acid and sugar as well. So this one, what did you think about the bubbles, Karen?
I think I don't feel that they're very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I am on kind of the mild side.
Yeah, I agree. With all the bubbles that are in the wine, I actually get a very soft bubble. Soft, we call it mousse, okay, is the proper word to use. But I get a softer mousse, and I get lots of citrus, and this is almost bordering on off-dry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's sweeter than I was expecting.
It's still dry. I mean, I think this one had about, actually, you know what? This one's an interesting wine. I could not find any information online for a while on it. I really had to dig. And that is, I love that on one hand, because that means that all the money that usually would go to marketing is just going to making wine. And this wine comes in at $10 to $12. So this one at $10 to $12 is a steal. But there we had no information online. What I did find out later after lots of searching is that it comes from the Côte de Jura. Now the Côte de Jura is in central France, and it doesn't export a lot of wine. What's interesting is this label here has no AOC. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to which WineCAST was it? There's a WineCAST we talked about reading French wine labels. Go back and read that. But it has no AOC, which indicates quality wine. Okay. It's not to say this isn't a quality wine. They just don't have to follow all the rules of a quality wine. So that's another reason why it's probably very inexpensive. Now, something else you see on this label right under François Montan is Blanc de Blanc. And it's in script, but here it is written out on my neat little chalkboard. Blanc de Blanc. What it means is it's white. Blanc means white. So it's white wine from white grapes. And what I found after searching for quite some time was that this is actually made from Irène and Ugni Blanc. Now, Irène is one of the most planted grapes in the world, and Ugni Blanc also is fairly well planted. But they're relatively low quality grapes. But what they're known for is really, really high acid. And so you want that on your sparkling wine. So with this high acid, this climate, you're able to get a really good quality sparkling wine at a really reasonable price. Now, I can't believe we're already almost out of time here. We're going to be talking about specifically about champagne and the method used for champagne in the next WineCast. But this one in particular, I want to know what you guys think. If anyone has, I know this wine was tough to find, so it was kind of a different wine, but the price I just could not pass. I had to try it. At $10, I heard great things about it, and I just thought this might be a steal. So I'd love to know what you think if you have it. Karen, what did you think about the wine?
I think it's good. I would drink it.
You would drink it. Okay. Right. So the choices are, dump it, finish it, buy it, stock it, save it. So you'd say finish it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would probably, I'm along the lines with you. Finish it. If I was having a big party and, I wanted a French looking label. I want people to think I have champagne, but I know they're not going to know the difference. I would get this bottle. This looks very champagne-like. It tastes good. And because it has just a little bit more sugar, your guests are really going to like it. They're going to really think this is a good wine because they're not going to think much about the wine. They're going to think about, Joe in the corner and getting closer to him or, getting further away from someone else. One other thing about this wine, though, I want to mention is that you can see at the top above François Montan is the word brut. So technically, this is a dry wine. Technically, it has to have under 12 grams per liter, which puts it at a dry level. But I would bet it's on the high end of that. I'll bet you it's right at about 12 grams per liter with the balance of sweetness and acid that we're getting on this one. So I think that's all. We've got 5 minutes till we start the next WineCast. Brian said finish it. Thanks, Brian. You guys think about wine, food and wine pairings, and we'll be talking about those in WineCast number 24. So keep those in mind. And I think we're going to sign off and sign back on, so don't go anywhere. One other thing though. We're going to be changing the calendar a little for January. There's no WineCast on January 4th. And let's see, it'll start back up on January 11th. You can check online under online wine tastings to find out when the next WineCasts are happening. But January 11th, they're going to start up again on Wednesday nights. And I think that's it. So Happy New Year if you're signing off tonight for good. We'll see you in a couple weeks, hopefully. And I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School, where it's wine your way.